How are we doing today, guys? Hope your graduation season is going well so far. So my last video I created, it was a request from a viewer. I created debunking the Southern strategy, right? So I think I made some fairly good points. I'm sure I missed some, as we all do, but go check that out if you want. There's a lot of other videos debunking it and other sources debunking it, such as New York Times in 2006. Ben Shapiro has, I know. Steven Crowder has. Ones that are honestly more professional than mine are, perhaps, or even more formal than mine are, if you want to go check those out as well. So there's many different outlets that you can go to debunk some of the strategy, because it's just such crap. So this video today is going to be something somewhat similar to that, but it's going to be about why blacks vote Democrat. So this is something that I know boggles a lot of Americans' minds, a lot of minds on the right, and a lot of young conservatives' minds as well. I know it boggled mine for a while. But just as why the South turned red, it's similar in the reasons as such as that it was more for economic factors than anything else. So the reason why blacks turned to the Democrats, we really have to look at the New Deal, right? So during the Great Depression, nobody had money. As we know, just great poverty, bread lines left and right. Really, really crappy time for a country. And the New Deal did nothing to help us. Okay, I don't know if you think that FDR helped our country get out of the Great Depression, but that could be there could be nothing further from the truth. The New Deal and FDR's policies to try to counter it kept us in the Great Depression for 20 years. Okay, it dug the hole of the Great Depression even deeper, when really he should have just gone on, backed away from it and let the free market work itself out. And then there's just a lot of lies surrounding how the Great Depression wound up to was created in the first place, but that's something for a whole nother video. So let's get to it. So the New Deal. The reason why so many blacks turned to the Democratic Party, and so did a lot of whites and a lot of and everyone from every race turned to the Democratic Party at that time, was because the Democrats, who were in charge of the government, were giving money to people. It's because they were giving out handouts, because they were creating government aid and were creating government programs to help out the poor and so on and so forth at that time. But still, blacks were disenfranchised from many of the programs. Some of the programs being the Social Security Act, the Wagner Act, and the Fair Labor Standard Act, right? So black laborers, or the majority of black laborers at least, were actually disenfranchised from this. They weren't allowed to partake in these programs, as were whites. So if you're thinking that FDR was some great crusader for civil rights, you're wrong. That's wrong. Neither does LBJ, and I'll cover that in a moment. So, as did millions of whites, like my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother actually grew up during the Great Depression, and thinks FDR was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Which actually, I think she was born in the year of sliced bread, so it's kind of funny. So she thinks FDR was great. She thinks FDR saved America and so on and so forth, which, economically speaking, is crap. So the reason why so many blacks vote Democrat is because of this economic reason. It's because the Democrats were the ones in power, and the Democrats were the ones giving money, to those that didn't have any. Were the ones giving out resources when resources were short, giving out money when money was short, which really hurt our economy a lot, as I said. And that's really something I could dive into on another video, how bad FDR's policies hurt our economy. But just for the sake of this one, I'll try to be pretty basic with it. So many people move toward the Democratic Party because of this reason, because they see the Democrats as the ones that really care for them. And, the Democrats can come in and save your life and going to give you money and going to be the reason why you don't starve to death. Excuse me. So you're thinking, well, the Republicans freed the slaves, right? Republicans were the ones pushing, and was the party pushing for the major civil rights legislation all the way dating back to Lincoln, right? Lincoln was the first Republican president, freed the slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation, so on and so forth. So, dating back to 1857, the 1857 Civil Rights Act, going all the way to the 1957 Civil Rights Act and the 1964 Civil Rights Act, right? You're thinking, well, if Republicans not only spearheaded that, and spearheaded the women's suffrage movement, which many people don't know, which was actually delayed by Woodrow Wilson for many years until his lame duck session, the reason why blacks have not only gone to the Democratic Party and stayed are two different reasons. So, like I said, the reasons why many blacks went to the Democratic Party, just like millions of whites did and millions of other Americans did of any other race, is because of that economic reason. Because they thought, the Democrats are the ones that really care about the people because they're giving us money so we can live. And which actually they thought at the time was helping. It really didn't. It just made the economy worse. And we still have many scars from that today, such as Social Security, and such as other legislation that was inspired by the New Deal, like Medicare and Medicaid. So let's get to why blacks still vote Democrat, right? And this really comes down to just some of the biggest lies of the left, such as the racial criminal justice system. I've made videos about how that's stupid, such as how they can't. There's somehow this glass thing that they can't break. Like this is we're a white patriarchal society, and we just keep down the black man. If you really want to get basic, and that's total crap. So not only have the left acquired the black vote, and also a lot of Democrats thought that blacks think and thought that the left and the Democrats are the ones that gave them all these rights. No, the 1957 was actually a really historic Civil Rights Act, which was actually watered down by LBJ and his buddies. But LBJ wanted to take the credit for it, even though he's the one that watered it down. Another note. LBJ actually voted down every major civil rights legislation for the first 20 years of his political tenure. People don't know that. He voted it down, okay? Until 1964, when he saw an opportunity for the Democrats to take the black vote and now win elections left and right because they have that black voting block, which is what happened. Which is why he said we'll be having those N-words voting Democrats the next 2 years. I'm not sure. So, thanks, Alexa. So, the reason why blacks have stayed on the Democrat train was because now we see all these lies that are being fed. We see that they're being fed affirmative action, which is inherently racist. If you are taking from some, giving to others on the basis of race, you're racist. Not only you're saying you as a race have too much, but you're saying you as a race are not capable enough to attain what that race has. So let's say, for example, SAT scores, right? If you're taking 250 points away from Asian students because Asian students statistically do the best on SATs, and then you're taking away from black students because blacks, well, statistically are one of the worst when it comes to SATs, unfortunately, that's inherently racist, right? That's not going on the basis of merit. You're going on the basis of race. How is that not inherently racist? Not only that, but like I just said, that's saying we think you as a race have too much. We, the government, think you have a race have too much, and we, as the government, think you as a race are not smart enough or able enough to acquire what this race has. That's inherently racist as well, really. But then they're also sold these lies, such as that even if they were able to, physically or mentally or whatever, that they can't because the white man's going to do whatever it can through government or just through racial means of not hiring them because of names or whatever. So they're not going to be able to ever get through it, which couldn't be further from the lie. As we saw, as the South went more red, racism decreased. That's what we saw. Not only that, Republicans pushed for civil rights. Okay, Republicans pushed for civil rights for years and years and years. And then it just got to the point where cosmopolitan areas became more Democrat because they became more progressive. Progressive is not the same as, obviously not the same as conservative. They're total polar opposites. But now what the left has done is they've hijacked this civil rights movement, and they've tried to make other subjects part of it. So like the trans movement, they try to make that as the new civil rights. Or gay movement, the same as civil rights. Okay, trans and gay are not race. That's not part of civil rights, so get that the hell out of there. Those have to do with orientation, nothing to do with some sort of physical trait that you can't change. So, at least that you can't change through actions, through any sort of action. You can't change your race through any sort of action, or even necessarily your height through any sort of action, or your age, right? So, excuse me. So, just to recap, the blacks moved, and I don't use African American, by the way. I think African American is really stupid. I think the only way you can even have the right to call yourself an African American is if you're from Africa, then you move to America, maybe. But even so, you're American. The greatest part about this country is that we're a set of ideals. Yeah, sure, we were founded by white people, but it was a country for all people. In the sense of our ideals were every man created under God, and we can really get into that in a different video, where why was still slavery? Well, actually, as I wrote in a paper, one of my final papers, most of the founding fathers were hardcore abolitionists. It just couldn't happen at the time, unfortunately. However, the reason why African American is stupid is because America is about a bunch of ideals. We're the melting pot. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. You come here, you're an American. Doesn't matter what you look like. Period. The end. So we're not some mixed salad that the left wants to try to sell. That's dumb. So blacks moved, and so did millions of whites as well, millions of other people of other races moved to the Democratic Party during the New Deal because they felt like they cared for them, and then blacks have stayed there because they've been told that they're disenfranchised by the whites, disenfranchised by the right, that the right was really the left, that the right was really the Democrats, which would be the party of KKK and the party of anti-civil rights and the party of anti-suffrage. That's what they're thinking. That, you know, that's the lie. That's the lie the left is telling them. That no, the Republicans are the ones that created all these sins. We actually all switched somewhere between the mid 1950s and mid 1960s. That's such crap, and it's been debunked so many times. It's a joke, right? So now what we have to do, and what's going on with like Candace Owens and even Kanye West, right? Which I don't really agree with Kanye West at all on anything, on most things at least, and I don't really think he's the sharpest tool in the shed, to be honest. But what we see is, we see a lot of blacks waking up and saying, and even like a lot of young Americans, thankfully as well, saying all these lies and all this revisionist history that's been taught to us, that has kept people in their place for decades. We see them being dismantled. Right? We finally see conservative outlets, due to the internet and due to just people seeking knowledge and people seeking something other than what they're being force-fed through the mainstream media. And we're seeing the truth really spread more and more. And we just need to keep purveying that respectfully and effectively and as honest as we can. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think I might have already recapped it, but just real quick, most blacks moved over to the Democratic Party mainly because of the New Deal. And if you want to go over some statistics real quick, I know I'm getting to the statistics pretty late, but if you want to look at the Black Party affiliation from 1936 to 2012, in 1936 it was 44% of blacks were Democrats and 37% were Republican. If you want to skip all the way to 2012, you had 76% of blacks were Democrat and 60% were Republican, with the rest being other or independent. And if you want to jump back to 1968, we had 92% of blacks were Democrat and 3% were Republican, with 5% being other independent. And then for the actual black vote itself, not party registration, we had in 1936 71% voting black, which means many black Republicans were voting Democrat, which would support what I'm saying right now. As in, even a lot of, this is when Democrats started moving, blacks started moving from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party for the economic reasons, right? And have stayed there since then due to economic reasons and due to just the lies of the left that the Republicans are disenfranchising them, and the Republicans are the ones that really did all these horrible things such as slavery or whatever else. If you want to move to 2012, this is no surprise because of Barack Obama, but still, we had 93% of Democrats voted, 93% of blacks voted Democrat, and 6% vote Republican, right? Or if you want to go to 1964, like we did with the other one where it said 82%, 82% of blacks were registered for the Democratic Party. In 1964, for the voting, 94% of blacks voted Democrat. So 10%, so over 10% of more blacks, which means about 10% of black Republicans voted for a Democrat in 1964. Right? That's craziness. That's absolute craziness. And blacks knew at the time that the Democrats were the ones. This is before the big party switch lie came, which really just goes to support the economic fact that they moved to the left because that they were offering government welfare and so on and so forth. And then they stayed there now because of all the other lies that the left is trying to tell them. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, hate, doesn't matter to me. If you would like me to make a video on something, just comment below or send a comment on maybe Instagram or send me a message over Instagram as well. Maybe tag me on something on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @TCC7076. So, folks, thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day. My name is Wyatt, the Me Culture Conservative.